wants to become the president of Ghana. After failing in 2006 to become the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, he is now setting his eye on contesting for the chance to lead the party in the 2020 elections. Will he succeed this time around, or he'll become the president who never was? How does his forward agenda fit into all this? Career diplomat, entrepreneur, and politician Ekwow Spio-Garbrah is my guest tonight, and you are watching The Hard Truth, proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and Dawa Industrial City. My name is Nana Akusia Kunedua Asante Samuels. You are watching The Hard Truth, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and Dawa Industrial City. Former Trade and Industry Minister, Mr. Ekwow Spio-Garbrah, it's here. Welcome to The Hard Truth.
Thank you very much.
It's great having you.
Thank you.
Moving on to business. Earlier this month, you launched what you call the forward agenda. There's been many interpretations in the media landscape of what that agenda actually is. What is forward agenda, and is it just your grand plan to win the flag bearership of, to claim power in 2020?
Well, it's a complex agenda that is continually under refinement. It's not cast in stone. It's about the mission of this country to move forward, Ghana, within the African continent, about the African continent's own aspirations to be more competitive in the global economy. And it's about the National Democratic Congress, the party to which I belong, also moving forward as a party that has lost elections and which may, if it doesn't look carefully at the future, backslide or go backwards. And of course, it's about me and my campaign team also moving forward with that agenda. So there are a lot of forward dimensions to the
You and
agenda.
your campaign started? So
well,
it when you and your
campaigns have started in an informal way.
Moving together
The party has not formally invited anybody to express their interest in leading the party or to seek nomination forms. But as politics goes, we have to start a process of consultations to begin with, to find out whether the most important stakeholder groups within the party believe that you have the qualities, the competencies, the attributes, the personality, the integrity, and all the other things that we all want to see in leaders
but you
to become a leader.
Right.
Otherwise, when the party asked for nominations, the last time it did, they even just give 30 days or so for you to go around and pick up signatures and all that. If you're not prepared, it will be difficult for you to respond to the party when the time comes.
Ekwow, but you believe that, to lead this agenda, it is not just a matter of talent or educational attainment or financial capacity, but rather the motivation in your spirit, which, you admit is difficult to actually examine and to measure.
Correct.
Doesn't this really make it a non-starter to begin with?
I'm just saying to the public that when we are choosing leaders for anything, whether for our businesses, for our communities, for chiefs in a particular area, for pastors, and for presidency, we ought to look for certain attributes. But because you cannot see a person's moral fiber and their personality qualities completely on their face, and as Shakespeare rightly wrote, that there's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. So you can't really tell how a person's mind is constructed, except, of course, by examining their whole life history, examining their works, whether in academic institutions or in organizations where they've worked, their commitments, their statements, and then hopefully you can reach some degree of understanding about who they are, where they are going, what motivates them, what they want to do with the public service that they are going into. So it's a challenge. Are we nominating people, electing them for people who want to be public servants, to serve the public, or people who want to serve themselves and their immediate families? And I think it's possible, after examining some people and how they've managed themselves over a period of time, to have a somewhat better appreciation of the alternative choices we have.
In your case in particular, you seem to equate your motivation and spirit to your sacrificing through international positions to serve Ghana. Should that be a standard, and does that really matter?
Well, I think it's, John Kennedy said once that think of what you can do for your country, not what your country can do for you. And that became a very well-quoted phrase all over the world. And I think when people quote that phrase, it's because they feel that think of what you can do for your country is a sacrificial thing, because what your country can do for you, yes, your country can ask you not to pay taxes, it can give you free education, it can give you this, it can give you that. But what can you do for your country? And I think that question, when people ask themselves, unless sacrifices, defined differently, I would imagine that it invariably involves some element of your time, your money, your energy, without necessarily asking for a reward.
So do you again see this motivation and spirit in your potential contenders, for example, Alban Babin?
It is not my place, with all due respect, to comment on the capabilities and the spiritual dimensions of anybody else. But I'm here to speak about myself and my interest, my capacity, and yes, my spiritual motivation. When you talk spiritually,
no, but you are talking about it's a special attribute to you. Others have it. So what makes yours so different? And why should we zero in into that alone and say, yes, he's the right person?
I know there's always a question about, it's a comparative thing, I understand. We are all in a fishbowl. We are all literally, if you like, products on a store shelf, and you have to decide, do I choose this particular kind of toothpaste or this particular brand of soap or another one? I would say that, since we are talking spiritually, there are not too many people who have chosen, after being ambassadors, being ministers of state, to go and work for God as a chief of staff of a church, for example, or as a chief executive officer of a church, for example, which I've done on 2 occasions, and continue to devote myself to various church-related activities, even as a president of a university. And where in any of these places you find that either wasn't compensated or very poorly compensated.
You talked about not taking up 3 international positions, but yet you came to...
No, I took the 3 international positions, but I left them in order to serve the people of Ghana.
So you came and then you took on the administrative position at Action International Church. So why did you choose Action over the other jobs?
Well...
did he pay better? And how much were you paid, can I ask you?
Oh, a few thousand cedis at best. It was mostly allowances. But the Archbishop of the church, who is very well known, I've been a member of the church for now going on 20 years. And once we lost power in 2001, and I set up my own management consultancy firm, I wasn't really getting any business in Ghana because companies told me to my face that, Ekwow Spio-Garbrah, you belong to the NDC. We can't give you any work while MPP is in authority. They said that to me. Indeed, the straw that broke the camel's back. I'll give you an example. Yeah. The straw that broke the camel's back, to use an English phrase, was the Ghana Education Trust Fund, an organization that, by God's grace, I set up and got cabinet approval for. I almost single-handedly selected the first board and got approval from His Excellency the President to establish the board, including the chairperson. I insisted that it should be a woman, so the first chairperson was a woman. And when we lost power, I wrote to them and I said, well, are you aware that part of the law establishing you authorizes you to raise money from other sources beyond the 2.5% value-added tax, which is the main source of funding for the organization? And I would like to help you to raise money from other sources. And indeed, I will not be asking for any fees. You can pay me from a percentage of the money I raise for you, so there's no cost to you. They responded and said, well, that's a good idea, but we can't give you the assignment directly. We have to advertise it to see who else is responding. Right. Now, even though there's a proprietary information I've shared with them, they wanted to open it up. I said, fine. They opened it up. Short story, shortlisted 5 out of I don't know how many companies that responded. We went to make presentations. After the presentation, the board called me to a meeting, and they had lunch with me. I said, you know something? You have the best presentation. You know more about this than anybody else. But you are an NDC member. We cannot give you this assignment. Board of Ghana Education Trust Fund in the year 2001. I mean, I could have taken this up with Shraj or any other body to protest my rights, but I just felt, well, this was a political decision. So sharing some of these experiences with that bishop, he said, well, why did you come and work for the church? Because here we don't discriminate based on your political affiliation. And we have a lot of needs here for management expertise, manage our financial situation, our budgets, our human resources, transportation, security, all kinds of things, IT, infrastructure, and what have you. So I said, fine. So to cut a long story short, that's how I ended up working for God.
But the unveiling of the forward agenda aside and considered the official launching of your candidacy ahead of the NDC primaries.
It's not a launch. It was the soiree. It's a media soiree.
Can I say it's a form of a campaign, isn't it? Seeming defiance of a party's directive.
There's no directive on this
not
matter.
To start campaigning.
There's no directive on this matter. But in any case, it was not a launch of a campaign. It was simply interacting with media personalities to make myself better known to those who didn't know me, and to give them a chance to have access to my team if they needed to ask any questions. We did not launch anything. There was nothing that I said that. But
let me
some
read
media
to you,
people
right.
may have written about something being launched.
Let me read to you some
statements
that you made at the encounter. You said, "This is it is this knowledge that I have been privileged to experience and to observe and to see at first hand, not somebody writing in a book that has given me the inspiration to say it. And to you and other Ghanaians, especially those in my party, the National Democratic Congress, that should you wish to give me the opportunity to lead this party and hopefully to lead the country, that I know it will take and whatever to solve most of the problems that we are talking about." So wasn't it campaigning?
However you want to describe it, it was engaging the media with the fact that I'm expressing
When do
interest.
we ever say people or ask people to do this? If I'm giving this, is when we are in a certain position wanting to vie for something else. Then we tell them, "Give me this nod," and so that is campaigning.
No, we haven't gotten to that stage where I'm asking anybody for a nod. First of all, the media are not voters in an NDC, delegates Congress or in an NDC election. So I couldn't have been asking them to give me a nod or to approve anything. I was just saying that at the right time, when the party has invited people to express interest or to pick a nomination form, I would hope that Ghanaians will look at the experiences I've had. The key phrases were the experiences I've had as a farmer, as a teacher, as a banker, as a salesperson, as an advertising executive, as a university president, as a church CEO, as ambassador of Ghana, as minister in 4 portfolios, working for the World Bank, working for the African Development Bank. I believe these are an extensive range of experiences that by God's grace I've been privileged to have. And I just feel that if the people of Ghana at the right time would wish me to share the benefits of that experience with them, then it will be my privilege.
The people of Ghana at the right time.
Honor.
So sure. Can I say that you didn't get the timing right in launching your candidacy?
I have not launched my campaign. You've already mentioned the word launch several times. And I said it was a media soiree. I would not, if I take you back into 2006, when I launched my candidacy for the leadership of the NDC, I did it at the Teachers Hall, NAT, Ghana National Association of Teachers. It was a launch of a campaign. So if you want to see the difference between the launch of my campaign and that media soiree, you will see the difference.
But the senior lecturer at the University of Education, Dr. Ahmed Junapo, for example, described your timing as not appropriate, saying that I wish he had, taken his time and wait a bit to actually come out. What would have...
So many people have come out in different ways. People have come out on this television program telling you that they intend to be
Is it the right time? In your opinion,
there's
do you think
no
it's time to
there's
come out and say,
I
I
want to be president? But there's a party official who's been, since January, repeating on many radio and TV stations that only one particular person should be considered for the leadership of the NDC. And nobody has found that to be wrong.
Who is this person?
I'm not here to personalize issues. I'm here to draw attention to that fact.
Aren't we, I don't like that. It's the hard truth. So if
But the truth is that it's in the news media. So if you don't know it, that's fine.
I know it. But so
others,
if you are saying something, why can't you just be bold about it?
It's not a matter of boldness. I'm trying to deal with issues and not persons. The issue is that there's an officer of the party who has publicly, because you're dealing with the issue of premature campaigning, issue of premature
So
posturing.
what is so wrong for you to mention that this
I'm not
person...
here to deal with that.
Anyway, former
the party
president...
executive knows it. All party executives know it. So I'm saying that the point is not about personalities.
Are you being soft, Spio?
Well, sometimes everybody needs to be soft and hard at the same time, but it's not a matter of being soft. I'm speaking the truth. The truth is that there's an officer of the party. You want the name of the person, and you say you know the name of the person, but you won't tell the person's name on your own program.
You mentioned that.
Yeah, but you say you know the person.
So you should tell me.
But you say you know the person. So don't be soft. Be hard.
Former President Mahama has continuously ahead, indicated that members of the party should rather pay more attention to the ongoing reorganization instead of who would contest or lead a party.
Very good.
That a right
I said that many
do?
times last year myself. In fact, many times last year when news agencies, news media contacted me, I said it is not the time for us to be campaigning, and the NDC is like a car that has had an accident. We are now going about looking for the parts for the car to fix it. We need to get engine oil. We need to get some, brake fluid and all kinds of spare parts. When the car is fixed, any good driver can drive the car to its destination. Former President Mahama used the image of a horse, a lame horse, which also needs some veterinary attention. And when the horse is in good condition, any good rider could ride a horse into victory. So I think these are all common images we all used last year. But the fact is that there are many ways in which people may campaign. Some may have a media soiree, as you may say, I may have had. Others have come on your show and other shows and made it quite clear in interviews in all media that they have an interest in the leadership of this party, interest in the leadership of this country. Others may be using unity walks as a means of giving themselves a platform to present their views or their personality to the population. There are so many methods and techniques that one cannot deny a human being freedom of association, which is guaranteed by our Constitution. So as long as freedom of speech exists, freedom of association exists, there's nothing in the NDC Constitution that prevents anybody from saying whatever they want or from associating with other people, except party-elected officers who are not expected, allowed, or required to show any discriminatory preference for any candidate while holding office.
Mr. Kofi Adams was, made some interesting comments on Newsnight on Joy FM last Wednesday. He said that we have not obtained nominations for any aspirants, so people going around presenting themselves as aspirants, we do not know them. What do you make of his comments?
Well, I don't know whether he actually said that, because knowing him most of the time, when he's accused of having said something, he usually says he didn't say that. But assuming any officer of the party made that statement, then as I'm saying, the issue for party headquarters is which among the party officers themselves have been showing preferential interest in any candidate since January 2017. When the party examines that question and they find which among themselves they have been flouting their own internal rules, then they have to deal with it.
You know these persons again, I'll ask you. So
the party headquarters will know who, since January 17, has been making statements that are against their own rules and practices. And most Ghanaians, especially those in the NDC, expect them to enforce their own regulations.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. You are still watching The Hard Truth, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and our industrial city. Former Minister for Trade and Industry, Mr. Ekwow Spio-Garbrah, is in our studio. There is currently some seeming tension in the NDC on who to lead the party again in 2020. Several individuals, including you, you made your intentions to contest. The question as to whether former President Mahama would contest or take the decision to be part of the candidates, it has been dominated in the media landscape. What do you make of the popular sentiment, to be between Mahama and the others?
Well, I think you are a media personality and you have a show.
Yep.
I assume you have a right to invite him to your show and ask him the kind of questions you're asking me. I can speak for myself.
Yes, I'm asking you. So what do you make of the popular sentiment that the election is definitely going to be between John Dramani Mahama and the others? So you are considered as the others. Yep.
Sure,
so what do you how do you feel?
I think any former president, whoever that person is, who may have served one term and by Constitution of Ghana has eligibility to serve another term and has not yet indicated that he will not serve, obviously is subject to such speculation. So it's normal for people to speculate as to whether he will be a candidate or not. But if you listen to President John Mahama himself, what he has said on the 3 occasions that I've heard him speak is that he will support whoever the NDC elects as its leader and flag bearer, which means he recognizes the possibility that it could be somebody else but himself. So, indeed, in whole, when the 5 other aspirants or potential aspirants were asked by President Rawlings to come and address the audience, and President Rawlings pointedly also invited him to also speak. He declined to speak on that occasion as an aspirant. So the public should wait until Excellency the former president chooses to indicate what he intends to do. But in the public domain, I think what people have to go by are, I think, a January 15th article in the Daily Graphic, where his family, I believe, with Ibrahim Mahama as the spokesman, came out and said John Mahama will not contest 2020. That was what was on the record.
Assuming he does. Yeah. What makes you different then?
That's what we've been talking about. the spirit within us, the motivation within us. What motivates people to come into public office? Which of us wants to serve the public rather than serve themselves and their families? Which of us has the competencies, the experience, both domestically and internationally? How many of us have had the privilege of working for an international organization to understand what goes on in those organizations? When you're talking to the World Bank, do you talk to them as just a recipient country which is confused and doesn't know how to manage them, or because you've been there before, you know what goes on in that organization?
Is that how you see
even
former
before,
President Mahama
I'm not
as a
speaking about
confused
anybody.
person? He
No,
wasn't
that's your
there.
language. That is your language. He's
You
not
have
the only
worked
candidate.
with them.
That's not. I'm mentioning one
Okay,
person.
so in this case, I'm talking about. So I asked about him, you and him specifically.
I'm not dealing with any particular candidate. You may want me to do
that.
That
is a question.
No, but you've told me that there are 5 or 6 candidates you know.
In this case, I asked you. You wanted me to use different.
And
so
I'll tell you what is
different
different about me, and you can reach your own conclusions about which of the 5 or 6 people you want to contrast my statement with. I'm saying that if I'm going to buy beer,
are you scared?
What am I scared about?
Are you
be
being modest, sir?
Maybe
are you
modesty
being
helps.
modest?
I'm being truthful. Hard truth.
Is
That's
it
what I'm telling you.
truthful or you're being modest? So you are thinking, oh, so
You
if
have a particular
if I
language.
don't win and maybe President Mahama wins, I mean, I'm being modest with my answers, so perhaps I might be given a position again. Is that what you're doing now?
I've never begged for any position in Ghana, believe me. Because as you have just said, I've always had, with all due respect, positions that I consider and most people consider to be either better or certainly more remunerative. Unless your objective in public service is to loot and to steal, which has never been my objective and never been my practice. But I'm just saying, if you want the hard truth, the hard truth is what I'm telling you, that what makes me different is what people can see on my CV, what people can see when they talk to me, my ideas about the future of this country. And you can't have those ideas when you haven't had certain kinds of exposure. So I'm not going to personalize it by saying this person knows this or doesn't know that. I'm saying that I've had the privilege of working inside the very organizations which try to manage, control, and influence the agenda of this country. By God's own grace and mercies, I've had the privilege of working inside the World Bank Group, specifically with the International Finance Corporation, which is the private sector arm of the World Bank, which is responsible for financing private sector investments throughout the world. I was their spokesman worldwide, especially on African affairs. And such organizations will not select you to speak on their behalf unless you understand thoroughly what goes on in that institution to speak competently on stations like this, in Indonesia, in Turkey, in Mexico, Trinidad and Tobago, Poland, wherever it is that you are asked to speak, you must speak competently on that organization. I worked for the African Development Bank. I was their head of communication globally. I had to represent them to raise bonds for the bank in Frankfurt, in Glasgow, London, Tokyo. What kind of knowledge do you acquire when you have such experiences? I work for the Commonwealth Telecom Organization, 54 countries, as the chief executive officer. 100 candidates from 25 countries applying for one job. Interviewed by people, by God's grace, always by God's grace. I got that job, put me in touch with heads of state all over the world. Worked with people in Buckingham Palace, Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Bahamas, Jamaica. You get to know these countries and their challenges.
In an interview,
and quite clearly, you can use the experiences in these organizations dealing with information and communication technologies to promote your country's agenda, if given the opportunity. So that's what makes me different. And everybody has their different story. Very good stories as well, as they've told you on this platform. So people will judge all these experiences, all these potentials, and hopefully reach a conclusion, which I would hope will be in my favor.
In an interview with, I think, Radio XYZ on May 9th this year, last year, 2017, you made the following statement. You said, first of all of us who were appointed by President Mahama have a great deal of respect for him, and all of us believe that since he led us into the last election, it is he who has the greatest potential to lead the NDC if chooses to, or if NDC chooses to. Were you being true to yourself when you made these comments?
The facts have not been accurately reported, but I was truthful to the extent that I said he was our leader. We have confidence in him. Most of us like him. I personally don't have any problem with him as a person. There are those who may have all kinds of challenges with him about his administration, his style of management, and what have you. But what I said then, which of course was misreported, was that we should give him the right of first refusal, which was, let us hear from him whether he intends to stand or not in order to determine our own plans. But I also made it clear that whether he stands or does not stand, there will be competition. And I myself was likely to be a candidate. But then I heard reports later that I said, if he runs, I will not run. And I have to explain to everyone who wants to hear that I've never made that statement, because my putting myself forward as a candidate has nothing to do with anybody else. It has to do with what God has put in each of us in terms of our potential and our aspirations. So it's like somebody saying that, oh, Akosua, you want to be a television talk show host, but why don't you put your aspiration or, if you like, ambition aside because somebody else is hosting another program who may be supposedly better than you, however that better is defined. They have more resources, they have more connections, they are taller, prettier, shorter, whatever. You're not going to put away what God has put inside you as what your potential is.
I see.
So you run your program. Let somebody else run their program. Let the population decide whether to watch your show or watch somebody else's show. That's the way I see it.
I see, but if you, let's say you win the primaries of the party, wouldn't you invariably campaign on the achievements and legacy of former President
Absolutely.
Mahama?
That's the reason why I'm not one of those who is inclined to condemn him. We have our views on him. If he asks my view on any matter, I'll tell him. He knows me as a very straight arrow. I used to be his boss, and he also became my boss. So we've had an interesting working relationship. But yes, the legacy of the NDC is not just the legacy of President Mahama only. It's the legacy of President Rawlings, who brought about PNDC and NDC. It's the legacy of President Mills, and also the legacy of President Mahama. So we have these three former presidents whose collective legacies, any aspirant or elected NDC leader will have to run on partially, and more importantly, I believe, project for the people of Ghana a new vision, a new Ghana, a new and improved NDC. What are we going to do different from what we did in 2016 that made us lose an election? Why 900,000 or more of our members chose not to vote for us? They didn't vote for NPP, they didn't vote for NDC, and indeed NDC lost the last election rather than NPP winning it. But I'm also hopeful that in this interview, as short as it is, or as long as it is, we'll have some time to talk about the current situation. Because we tend to spend a lot of time talking about NDC. We are not in power. What people of Ghana want to know is about today and their future.
Yes, and we also want to know what you want to bring on board. So
of
some
course
believe that this may be your last stab at glory. that is if you lose this time around and race, that would affect your chances of coming again.
I wonder why.
How do you see it?
Well, it depends on how young or how old Ghanaians want their presidents to be. I think we have a president now who may be hovering, you tell me the age, 73, 74. And you've suggested my age on this program, so at least I'm 10 years younger than the current president. If Ghanaians choose to have a younger president the next time, then I may be too old for them. If they want to choose a president that is very experienced and has certain talents, and as you say, I may be 60-something, but I look 50-something. So it's a question of, if that is true, on hard truth.
That is so true anyway.
Then in that case, I may not be as old as I may be. And as a matter of fact, I happen to be 3.4 years younger than my class average in secondary school and more than 5 years younger than my university classmates.
I see.
So I come to a job very youthful in anatomy, but very experienced in the mental faculties in terms of the years of exposure that I've had. I had a degree at the age of 19, as you may be aware. So I've been working for a long time. At the age of 22, I was general manager of the second largest advertising agency in Ghana. And I did a lot to promote all the brands that you know about, from the club beers to the Pineapple Tobacco Company, PTC, 555, so many things. Fan Milk, British Caledonian Airways, we became British Airways, Firestone.
Good for you,
Bayer,
but
Pfizer and all above. So it's a lot of experience. And I like to put all the experience at the benefit of
you're
the
so
Ghanaian people.
Passionate and excited about it. But while some believe that your experience and personality makes you a good presidential material, they also believe that your infamous Team A and Team B statement will limit your effort of, to mobilize the necessary
I don't think
support.
so at all.
Could that be the case?
I doubt it very much. This is a statement that is probably now 10 years old.
But really, why did you say that?
People still want to.
Why did you say that?
No, but I mean, it's a fact, even though it's not a pleasant fact, that no president can appoint all Team A in the team. It's not possible. Why? And I said that on my vetting. And if you get B in an exam, it's not a failing grade. B is a very attractive grade for most people. But in any case, all presidents
have to... So you still stand by your Team A and Team B statement?
I've apologized for it because it's a statement that made in public without explanation. Some people will not understand. And I've also explained that I was quoting, if you read the Daily Graphic, I said I've heard on radio discussion programs people making such a statement. I was quoting other people, but those who didn't read it just say, hey, Team A, Team A, Team B. I don't think so. In any case, there weren't more than 20 or 30 people who might assume that such a statement may have affected them. And we have 4 million or more NDC members. So this is not a statement that, in my judgment, should impede improving relationships with all members of our party. I'm a friend to all segments of the party, both low and high. I mean, I meet everybody who's available. I'm friends among parliamentarians. I supported more than 100 current MPs to win their seats, T-shirts, motorbikes, some cash. And I've done that repeatedly over the years. As I've said earlier, foot soldiers of our party, so-called grassroots people, my ministry was one of the most popular destinations for them when we were in office. On any given day, 10 to 30 people show up in my ministry reception, conference room. I went out and spoke to them every single day, whenever they were there. I didn't close my doors to them. Invariably, they had various needs, school fees here, hospital bills there, rent problems there, 20 cedis, 50 cedis, 100 cedis.
So that won't affect you in any way at all?
Well, you can't be popular with everybody. I don't think anybody expects to win 100% of any vote anywhere in the world. In most countries, even if in this country you win 51% of the vote at the national election, you become president. It means that 49% of the people who may not have wanted you. Donald Trump, President Mahama, President Mills, nobody. It's difficult to even get 68 or 70% of the votes in any election. So if you get 51, 52 at any time, 20%, 30%, 40% don't really care for you. So there will be people who, no matter how much you apologize to them, no matter how you befriend them, just don't sync with you for whatever reason. Your values may be different from their values. Your personality may not come across the way they want it to be. That's why, unless you tell me otherwise, you're married to only one man. There could be 200 other men who might want to marry you, but at the end of the day,
why are you smiling?
Get married to one person.
but do you trust?
Just to let you understand that we all can't like somebody, marry them, vote for them or whatever. There'll always be choices, yeah.
I see, but do you trust the current executives of your party to provide a fair and level playing field for all candidates interested in leading the party? Well,
it's a question mark that I think the public is watching, and NDC members in general are also watching. As I've said already on this program, they are aware of at least one of their members who has flouted their regulations repeatedly. People are expecting them to enforce their own rules and regulations. If they fail to do that,
let me help you. Mr. Kofi Adams has indicated that Mahama is the best candidate to lead the party. He said, I've said that President Mahama is in NDC today is the best material for the party, or the party has. That was in, I think, somewhere January 2017. What do you expect the executives to do to make sure that no one candidate is seen to be favored among the others?
What the rules are that they are all human beings. They are expected to have their preferences, but they are not expected to say them publicly. So you obviously go and vote for somebody, and many of them are themselves either not going to be candidates for the position that they hold now, or may try to switch from one position to another, or some will try to present themselves and will not be re-elected, not just at the national level, but at the regional level, at the constituency level. They themselves are also subject to election, just as I will be subject to election should I become a candidate as I expect to be. So they will also be subjected to the vote of the people. And if they're not behaving themselves well, if they don't show the neutrality that you are saying, and I am also saying they ought to show, the party members are observing them and watching them. And at the right time, their own fates will be determined.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Hard Truth, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and our industrial city. Mr. Ekwow Spio-Garbrah, he is the former Minister for Trade and Industry. So you have promised to solve most of the problems in Ghana if you win the chance to lead this country. Let's look at corruption. You have said that many people now believe that the primary purpose of public service in politics is to make money or amass wealth for themselves and their family. In your view, has the fight against corruption been satisfactory over the years?
Not at all. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and that room for improvement has to start much earlier than we may assume or prefer. Some of us have managed to stay as clean as possible. Not that we are saints, by virtue of a certain injection that was put into our DNA in the days of Kwame Nkrumah, when some of us became young pioneers, and when we were taught subjects like ethics, subjects like civics, subjects like patriotism, subjects like nationalism. Many of these things are not being taught. You might read about them by accident, and most 8 to 18-year-olds are playing with their mobile phones and WhatsApps and Facebooks and Instagrams without really getting sufficient moral grounding. So I think there's a great deal of room for an improvement in moral grounding at the family level, at the level of our churches and our religious organizations, which have the privilege of having audiences sitting in front of them for 1-2 hours or more every week. They have a lot of airtime as well. And then, of course, in our schools and within our governmental institutions. So a certain amount of moral education is necessary. But beyond that are the rules and regulations that are supposed to guide our conduct. Today, there's a lot of indiscipline. If you start at any traffic light, and almost everybody on a motorbike just goes through the traffic light as if they're not part of the regulated vehicular traffic in Ghana. They should be wearing helmets. They don't. They should stop at red lights. They don't. So the indiscipline goes on in different ways. But corruption in particular, which is corrosive and which prevents the people of Ghana or any other country after they've paid their taxes from getting the full benefit of their taxation and for the contributions they are making, is one particular area that government after government has spoken about. We as NDC may have lost the elections partly due to that perception. The current government, we don't think, are doing very much to improve the situation. Because it's one thing for people to commit offenses. People will almost always commit an offense, whether in a family, in a secondary school, or in society. But what do you do about it? So if you hear that there's contaminated fuel at Most, for example, and the minister responsible for that sector says, let me put up a committee of inquiry to see whether this is true or false. And before that committee can even sit, another governmental agency, possibly, supposedly based on higher level instructions, issues a statement saying, oh, actually nothing happened. Everything is fine. So the committee of the minister becomes literally, set aside, and they never actually sit, never produce a report. The whole world is watching that. Ambassadors and high commissioners from various countries are in Ghana. International organizations are in Ghana. Civil society organizations are in Ghana. And so at the end of the day, you see the CDD, I think it's the Center for Democratic Development, with Professor Emmanuel Jimabwedi, coming out with a report on the performance of this government's phase. And it's a very damning report about the numerous instances where they failed to take proper action against perceived, because of course a person is innocent until proven guilty, but there should be evidence in the public's mind that all effort was made by the appointing authorities to investigate the issue and culprits are brought to book. If you get the United States ambassador, and I think the Danish ambassador, coming out openly and publicly to say that investors in Ghana are holding up their investments because of corruption or perceived corruption or allegations of people having to take money before you can see the president. Or as we now have an open investigation in Parliament to sit by the president, you must pay 100,000. Of course, it's being investigated.
Yes, there's an investigation.
Those kinds of things don't help.
Moving on, I want to find out, what do you make of the president's approach of using a special prosecutor to effectively fight corruption?
I don't think it's the president's approach. I mean, this was a debate that has been going on for many years. It began certainly while NDC was in power, under President Mills, under President Mahama. The processes started then. But yes, it is during the current administration that the law has been passed and a special prosecutor has been appointed. I mean, to the extent, I'm not a lawyer, but to the extent that there's a view among law enforcement agencies, among attorney generals, that the Attorney General's office, which is responsible for justice as well as numerous other things, international contracts, commercial, things and appointments of all kinds, may not have enough time on its hands to do prosecution, especially corruption-related prosecution. And therefore, an independent special prosecutor is needed, notwithstanding the existence of other YOCOs and BNIs and NACOPs, etc., to prosecute corruption. Then it's in the right direction.
You served as Minister for Trade under former President Mahama, whose government was tagged as being corrupt. Right. Was corruption under the John Mahama and his government perceived or real? That's what I want to ask.
Only history will tell us, because as we have agreed in law and on this station, everyone is considered innocent until they are proven guilty. That's the legal regime that we've inherited from the British and other, global influences. So until anybody from the NDC administration has been proven guilty in a competent court of law, we have to assume that they are all innocent. But yes, perceptions of corruption will exist. And corruption exists not just in the public sector and in government. It exists in the private sector, a lot of it.
We are talking about in government.
Yeah,
in government, right.
But no, but I'm talking about the fact that if we, you and I and others, are concerned about corruption in Ghana, they should not look only at the public sector as the place to cure it. Because if you cure it in the public sector and it's rampant in the private sector, and there are more human beings employed in the private sector than in the public sector, by the way. If it's rampant in our churches, rampant in our communities, and even among chiefs who either sell land 3-4 times or give lands to Fulani people to do this and that, or get involved in galamsey allocations which are improper. Those are all things that
so you're saying it was a perceived corruption and not real corruption from what you're saying until it's proven.
The proofs come in and the convictions come in, we have to give all individuals the constitutional and legal protection of being innocent until proven guilty.
Former President Rawlings in March 2016 stated, and I quote, he said that this president claims he is fighting corruption, but I can't really see that. I think during the June 4th celebrations, he described corruption under the NDC government as 1,000 times more than what led to June 4th. How do you juxtapose his claim against what you're saying?
No, but his claim and my claim are not different. He, being a former president, may see things better, faster than those of us who are just serving as ministers, because you'll be seeing things from a certain pinnacle of experience.
You didn't see anything,
19 years in office.
So things happened.
We all read in the papers that Mr. So-and-so is believed or alleged to have done that. Fine. So you investigate him, and if we're not investigating our people well enough in 2015, 2016, then we got voted out. So the current government has the opportunity to do the investigation. And they have a vested interest in investigating properly and getting their convictions to prove that what they said against us was right. So we have to just wait and let them continue with their prosecutions.
Ekwow, what's your vision for Ghana?
My vision for Ghana actually is in writing, and I'll try and get a copy for you so that you have no doubt. And it's been in writing for more than 12 years when I was running for NDC's leadership.
So if someone sees a call, I mean, I should think that, oh, this guy wants to do A, B, C, D, E for Ghana. What's that?
Well, to take the best advantage of our human and natural resources and to maximize them for the benefit of the vast majority of our people.
Will it be all talk?
As simple as possible.
Will it be all talk and no action?
Oh, well, the action I am involved in, I don't even have to wait to be president to be implementing some of the things I believe in. That's why I said I've been in farming for 17 years. I don't really make any money from it, but it's a means by which I learn about farmers and their challenges, and I give employment to people and pay their wages every month.
Right, but
Number two, I am also involved in mentoring in schools. So when I tell you about the moral education that we need to have, and it must start early, I'm not just talking theory, because you're asking me about words. There's actions. We get into secondary schools, we get into universities, and I'm mobilizing other mentors to go into the schools and share with them their career experiences, so we prepare the next generation not to be unemployed. I'm utterly against the idea of an association of unemployed graduates, and I'm looking to see to the abolishing of that organization by creating employment and job opportunities for its members. In the health sector, I've been chairing a cancer organization for more than 8 years. And World Cancer Day is coming up on February 4th. So cancer awareness, health screening, whatever it takes for us to have a healthier population are things that are of great interest to me. I've been privileged not only to be Minister of Communications of Ghana, to serve on the boards of telecom companies like Vodacom and Telecom South Africa, or to chair the National Communication Authority, but to be chief executive, as we discussed, of an international telecom organization. And therefore, the use of information and communication technologies as an enabler to network the brain power of Ghanaians. This is one of my principal missions if I were privileged to become president.
You are talking about your experiences, you're talking about the positions you've held, you're talking about, but when it comes to governance, how, I don't know, will it be very easy to connect? So we have other people, we have others who did several jobs, but what happened? So what
who left other jobs?
No. So we have people, president coming in, they were into other jobs, but yes, they use their experience. You're talking about experience and the jobs you've had.
And I'm saying I'm doing these things now and not waiting to become president to do them. So you realize that these are already my passions, because I may never become president if God doesn't permit it. And so I'm not going to sit here and wait to be president before I do these things. So I'm saying now, and for 7-8 years, I've been doing these things.
But using your experiences,
promoting electronic governance,
using your experiences as chief executives, wherever, how different or difficult can you connect that? So you're talking like it's going to be easier, or it's going to be very easy?
Difficult. Nothing is easy. Even the United States, which is very far advanced, they're not having it easy there with Donald Trump. The British and the Germans are not having it easy. The Japanese, nothing is easy. Everything is difficult. Everything you're trying to do, no matter how good it is, people are going to oppose it. And especially since we've selected the Western style of democracy, where at any particular time, a group of people are supposed to be in power, and another group who lost power are to oppose whatever you are doing. That's their job. According to Western style democracy, you will always have challenges. But if you network the knowledge of Ghanaians, and I have been privileged, if I have time to say this, of working in these 4 international organizations where Ghanaians consistently from 1960, 1970, 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010, if you go to any of those organizations now, or if you had gone to them during these periods I've mentioned, and you asked non-Ghanaians in those organizations, Bolivians, Moldavians, Italians, Portuguese, Malaysians, of the various Africans working here, which nationality group do you consider to be the most competent? You'll be surprised, or maybe not too surprised, to hear that they will consistently mention Ghanaians in the World Bank Group, at the African Development Bank, within the Commonwealth of Nations. We are talented people. We are very knowledgeable people. We are very adaptable people. Talk to the multinationals who work here, the chief executives of international organizations, the Schlumbergers, the, Talos, and ask them about the quality of Ghanaians that they work with here or overseas, and they will tell you a lot of wonderful things. But are we making enough use of our brain power? And if you talk to the university lecturers, which I do regularly, they are among the most disappointed people in this country, that with all the professorial knowledge they have, governments after governments have not made adequate use of them. And if you look at many of the boards that we established, many of the committees that are established, you will not necessarily find the most expert person on that subject sitting on the board or council of many of our public institutions. Because yes, we must give so-called jobs to the boys, and political party faithful will expect some rewards for their efforts. But you must blend that with people who have actual specific knowledge about the subject at hand. And we don't really give knowledgeable people the opportunity because they are too known, they are too this, they are too that, they are arrogant, etc.
Aren't you too known? Do you consider yourself as too known?
Well, I don't think so, because I wish I knew more. But there are those who may take me as being too known.
Moving on, as a country, do you think that we really have a strategic vision and direction of where we want to be in the long term?
Well, not enough, because we have a National Development Planning Commission, which is supposed to come up with, various 5-10-year development plans. In fact, the African Union has a 50-year development plan for the whole continent, of which our country and our regions are supposed to take their inspiration to develop their various national development plans. Most governments, through their political parties, come up with a manifesto which gives an outline of what they would like to do in 4 years. But because of the Western-style democratic system that we've adopted, there is often an over-promising and an under-delivering. And the New Patriotic Party, who are in power now, are the best at that, over-promising. We shall build a railway line from here to Burkina Faso. Under President Kufuor, they didn't even add 1 meter to the national stock of railway lines, and they got out of office. We shall improve the power situation. They didn't add 1 megawatt of power to the national grid when they were in power for 8 years, and they're not doing very much now. We shall do so many things that they promised that they don't get to do. So 1 district, 1 factory. We shall do 51 in 2017. At the end of the year, they've done 1, but that 1 is overgrown with weeds. There's no production there yet. They're promising to deliver more. What happened to your own
sugar factory?
They have chosen not to operate it, but it was operated with crushed sugar. Television cameras came there. More than 8 media came there, shown photographs of the entire production process. Sugarcane was cutted from all over the place. It was crushed. Sugar came out of it when containers branded Commander Sugar. So if you inherit your father's house, and he has only built a foundation. You built the first floor or a second floor.
Was a one-off production, I mean.
Why one-off production? This factory is supposed to be there for at least 25 or 30 years. No, you've taken a loan from Indian government to build that factory. Why should it be one-off? That you tested it and that's that you close it? But MPP,
that was what happened.
Well, then talk to them, because this same MPP, when we were United Party, closed down almost 300 factories built by Kwame Nkrumah, just because of ideological difference.
It's okay for you to take taxpayers' money and tell us you open a sugar factory, and then it just functions once and then it closes down, and you want the next government to take over. That's what he's saying.
We didn't close it down. The factory
not working.
But that's because of MPP choosing. No.
Anyway.
Sugarcane is in season for about 6 months in the year, between October and about March, April. So after that, you don't have sugarcane in most parts of Ghana, and therefore almost all sugarcane plants, certainly in the ones in our zone, are 6-month factories. For the next 6 months, you have to close them down and repair, maintain them, and wait for the sugarcane season again. And there are most agricultural...
How many times did you use the equipment?
You have to maintain the equipment, you have to test them, you have to trial them, you have to make sure that the equipment is standardized, they meet certain tests.
But it was new.
I'm saying that even after the 10th year, you still have to close it down every year after the sugarcane season, unless you've accumulated sugar from all kinds of places, to close it down, whether it's for 3 months or 4 months, and wait for the sugarcane crop to grow. And most agricultural products are like that. Cashew grows for the same 6 months, or they don't grow. I mean, you harvest them over a 4 to 5 month period, usually between January and May, June. After that, there's no cashew coming from a tree. So unless you pack them in a place that you can preserve them for the rest of the year, your cashew processing plant has no cashew. And that is the case with most crops. Since you are a good lady, now you are married, when you are going to market, even before you're married, I'm sure you notice that there are times when there's no avocado in the market. There are times when tomato is not really in season. And most prices keep going up and down with most agricultural produce. So any processing, any agro-processing must be in sync with the timetable for the crop that we are growing. Some crops are year-round, like pineapples can grow all year round. Rice, depending on irrigation, can probably grow all year round, etc.
If finally, in the event that you lose the flag bearership race, will you accept an offer from President, Mahama to be his vice?
I hope all aspirants to the leadership of the NDC, because only one person can win that race, will agree to serve the party in any capacity, whether we win or lose. But there's no assurance that having won even the flag bearership, you will win 2020. And you may not win, and if we don't, you must still serve the party. And if we win, you must also serve the party in any capacity that whoever is the leader invites you to do. That's why I was working at the African Development Bank.
So in your case, will you take it?
I left that job
in your case, Ekwow, will you take it?
Why don't you hear yes in what I'm saying?
So you say yes. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course you are.
Thank you so much, Ekwow.
You're trying to be harder than you need to be.
Mr. Ekwow Spio-Garbrah, former Minister for Trade and Industry, has been our guest. Thank you so much, sir, for coming. What do you make of Mr. Spio-Garbrah's decision to contest? He said it's not a campaign yet. He's considered and he's out. He wants to be the candidate for the NDC. What do you think of it, or what do you make of his decision? Send us your comments to our social media platforms on your screens right now. You've been watching The Hard Truth. My name is Nana Akosia Kunedu Asante Samuels. Catch a repeat of the program tomorrow morning, 9 to 10 a.m. We are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and our Industrial City. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.